Ashleigh Dallas has won 5 golden guitars, and that's because she is an artist of considerable talents as a singer, songwriter, and musician. It's those same talents that have seen her invited to perform in festivals such as Red Country in the Pilbara, where she's just visited, and the Gympie Music Muster, which is coming up in late August. She'll be taking her new single, Love Still Has Something, to the muster. I'm pretty sure. I'll ask her. We're going to talk about it. Hi, Ashleigh.
Hello, it's so nice to be back on. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's great to talk to you again as ever. And I'm actually going to start with the new single. Your vocal breaks my heart in this one. You're always a singer whose heart is in every song, but this one, for some reason, really got me. So I'm wondering if it got you too.
It actually really did, to be honest. And I think I go into the studio now with a total different light of why I want to sing as well. And connection is so important for me. So really taking the time before we start doing the vocal tracking has been a big part that has changed in this record process, and finding the ground and being really mindful of the energy of the song. So with this song, there's a huge level of vulnerability in the lyric. And I remember that feeling when I first finished it, writing it in this home space. And I wanted to tap into that in the studio. I think when you get in the studio, you often think about singing everything perfectly. And of course you want it's a forever piece of your vocal out there.
Mm-hmm.
But I really wanted to tap into the heart and the sentiment of these lyrics. So I appreciate you saying that it did move you as well when you heard it.
I'm interested that you're saying you're doing a different process now, that you're actually working on it before you do the vocal tracking. And I'm wondering if that's almost like an energetic process of connecting with the energy, or the feeling you had when you wrote the song.
It is. It's really going in. I think people often see with my music and my performance style quite an energetic spirit, which is, an always happy, smiling kind of personality, which definitely exists. That's definitely a lot of who I am. But with this song in particular, and there's a few songs on this new record that are really quite, as I said, vulnerable and hitting an energy and emotion that often you shy away from sharing. So with this, I really take the time. It's weird little things. I need to feel the ground when I sing this song. And I remember going into the studio with Dad, and simple things like taking off shoes to make sure I could feel the ground, having the actual page that I wrote this song on with the book so I could see the franticness in my writing, and all of those sorts of, stirring up those feelings of this song. It's essentially about real deep, heavy anxiety and depression, and not being able to leave the four walls that you've built a sanctuary around, but knowing if you do and you let love in, that it's still going to give you something. So with this song, it's even weird talking about all that in the sense of, with my producer, it's my dad. So straight away, there's often, with other, I guess, relationships, etc., it might be something you shy away from talking with your parents when it's something so vulnerable. But Dad even understood where I was headspace wise when I wrote this. So it was a big part of us that we wanted to convey that feeling, that notion, that sense of vulnerability, yet also that you do come with strength when you realize and let down your walls and let the love back in. So the process, I now meditate before I even go into the studio as well, so I can really harness the energy I need, especially when I am in that kind of, if the day's been great energetic wise and you go into the studio to sing a song about this, you need to take a minute to just like zone and calm your energy down as well. And to go in, as I said, I feel like I've really got a strong understanding as a singer-songwriter. My main purpose is to bring a connection to people, to make them feel seen and heard, whether that's with joy or with sadness. So, it's going into that process a lot more mindfully now.
Yeah, what you were talking about then, with your father being your producer and things you might hesitate to say in front of him, it's that conundrum you have as a child, I think, or someone's child, where they're the people who love you the most, and they would be mortified if they thought that you couldn't tell them anything, yet you want to protect them from those emotions. And now you have two children of your own, and I would imagine you're in the same position when they're grown up, and if they're feeling that way, you would absolutely want them to tell you everything, but they may not tell you. So just because they may not feel that they can confess it for whatever reason. And I think it's, as I said, it's that conundrum of being someone's child.
Absolutely. I think it's that whole pressure that you put on yourself that, I think I know when I first started struggling with my anxiety and depression, it was in that phase of becoming a young adult where you think that you should have everything kind of together because you're now an adult in society.
Mhm.
And of course, you never want to it's weird, that often the people that would be there to support you in anything, often they're the people you want to make the most proud. And sometimes that pride factor of, which is why I think this song was so important to release, is so there's conversation around it, that it's it's not a sign of weakness to say that you need help.
Mhm.
And I think as a songwriter, I've even evolved. I've got songs that touched on depression and anxiety throughout every album,
Mhm.
but young 18-year-old Ash used to say it was about a friend of a friend, whereas now I would look down the barrel and say love still has something exists because I wasn't okay. I was struggling with my mental health. And I've always been someone who journals and writes song as kind of this my own therapy process. Um, and it's been really great now that I think I'm in a place where it does start conversations with my parents, with my partner, my friends and family, and even my band. As a singer songwriter who travels, you want your team to have cohesiveness and have each other's back. So just that strength in actually verbalizing this sort of stuff, it's been really nice to have that level now within my own music.
To go to another conundrum, I think that one is the part of what is your power as a songwriter and as a singer is your ability to feel so much and to be vulnerable to the waves of change and to things that are happening and to really experience them and then be able to write about them and sing about them. But that's the same thing that perhaps make you vulnerable to anxiety and depression, is that you are really feeling a lot of the time.
Absolutely. I think everyone has different levels of how, yeah, they intake and what they take on. And I'm always been like, I remember as a child, I couldn't watch certain movies because I would exist in that plot and the emotion well after the movie had finished. And I would be sitting there going, oh, what if I was that person? Like, I've always been one to take on other people's, a huge empath, like huge, huge empath. um, and I think with creative minds, we are prone to, as you say, we engage in those feelings and we're talking about emotions in songs. So I think everything's quite heightened for a sensitive creative mind. And I've certainly found that I've got to balance those things out now a lot more. And I think too, existing when you have anxiety and depression, but you're also a person who has so much joy around them, often you get in that conundrum as well where you're like, I'm feeling really happy because my kids are healthy and they're great and they're beautiful beings. But at the same time, I've got this going on and I'm sensory overloading. I
Mhm.
think realizing that you can exist in two of those realms at one time, um, is also a big part of this discussion as well. With trying to understand why you can feel all these things at once.
Yeah. And also perhaps acknowledging that you actually wouldn't change it if you were given the option.
Well, I think that's a big part too. Is I think with a lot of you do look at thinking about changing things, etc. But I'm a big believer on that we exist in the scenarios that the universe want us to exist in for a reason. Sometimes we don't know why the reason is until well after you've got through it. But I think with my own journey with mental health, and as I said, this song really speaks about the vulnerability of locking yourself in a safe haven of four walls. Um, it's been quite an up and down journey of different realizations and different growth patterns within myself. And I know it rocked my world when I became a mum for the first time and went, oh gosh, that's like a mirror reflection of all the things you want to work on. And then it steadied out, and life's constantly throwing us all hurdles. That it has spikes and peaks, and it's like valleys and highs and lows. But yeah, it's this song for me, I felt such an urge. It's to release it at this time. I almost felt like if I'd released another song, because we're gearing up to release this new record, and we talked about other singles and more of the upbeat, festival vibe songs.
Right.
And I almost felt like, to be true to my authentic self, I actually had to put this song out there because, this year, especially with social media, always celebrating the highs on socials and look what we've done. But it's been like a year of roller coaster emotions and grief. And so I felt, to be true as an authentic singer-songwriter and as an artist, this was the time that I actually needed to highlight this song before it came out on the record.
Mm-hmm. And you're releasing it now, but it was written a little while ago. It was written during the pandemic, because when Sam Hawksley had his song club, and I remember talking to you about that song club, and you had a real purple patch in that song club and wrote dozens of songs, I think. What was the prompt that led to this song?
Yeah, I wrote so many songs. It turned the tap on. But this prompt was "Love Still Has." He left it as an open-ended kind of sentiment. And I think, the pandemic, even though we're existing now outside of that crucial kind of lockdowns and where the whole world just tipped, there's still parts of this world that aren't functioning right yet. And even just in general, sometimes you look at the news and it's far too much. But this just sparked. I remember "Love Still Has." I sat on that prompt right up until the deadline day, which was that Thursday. And I was starting to. It was 2021 that I wrote this, so it was pre having our second daughter. And I guess I was really starting to have that doubt of, I'd chosen a professional path that I thought was also going to, be supportive for my family. I think that's a big part as well with us creatives, is that we pour so much in, and when something rocks it and it becomes uncertain, and music is, or most of the time, it is uncertain anyway. And all of those insecurities and those inner voices were really strong in my mind, and of course, I never showed that outside to family. I was coming internally and doing that classic, pacing in a room and looking at a wall blankly, trying to find an answer right in front of me when it actually needed a bigger picture to exist. And I remember when I submitted this song, I heard straight back from Sam with the lyrics, and he picked up actually on some of the rhyming scheme and how some of the lines don't actually end as the sentence, they start the next one ahead, so the end is the beginning kind of thing. And I never thought of that structure when I was writing. I just poured it all out. And it's been really nice to have that, from that acoustic kind of space, in that vulnerable space, and then taking it into the studio and getting it to the product that it is now. It's been quite a full circle.
And it is an all Dallas affair, because apart from your father being the producer, he also played guitar, and your brother Lindsay plays bass, and you did everything else. So in terms of creating the song, is it a matter of do you always record the same of your part first? Like, is it always vocals first, or do you do fiddle first? How do you do it?
With this track, we put down vocal and my guitar first, but it was a rough vocal. I always knew I wanted to go back in and do a vocal once we got all the instruments on. And yeah, I'm really lucky. Between my dad and my brother and I, we've covered a whole band situation. With my brother's on bass, and he's one of the finest bass musicians, in my opinion. I think he could be an absolute in-demand musician if he absolutely wanted to put his hand out there to do that. So and he brought such a lovely energy as well to that space. And then Dad with all the guitar works and bringing all the percussive in and etc. And then I went back in with the violins once we got that core structure down. I always heard the melody, that front melody that you hear. I had that in my head from the minute I wrote it. We just explored a bunch of different instruments to where what it sounded the best on, and it was the soaring, the sweepiness of the violin for me. But I love on this, there's this little guitar part that just echoes in the background of each verse. It's kind of like, I call it like the brain tick. It does this da 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 da. And I said, oh, when I first heard Dad put that down, I said, that sounds like all my thoughts going da 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 da. So it's yeah, I really loved how this track has come together, and it feels so nice to play this live. We've had the chance to play it live as well, and it really is quite lovely. It's quite strong for what is to perceived as a slower ballad, and you know, obviously a sensitive topic. There's a strength to it which I really love as well, and I think that's in the acceptance of when you do realize that you do need help and you open your heart up for that help and let love in.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a weak thing to do at all. And I think I feel that every time I sing this song.
Yeah. Well, I think part of the musical strength is your fiddle in it. It's that, because it gives it a different resonance to how it might have been otherwise, where it could have been a slower song, I guess, or yes, just not as layered. It's a very layered slow song, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, and that was all done intentionally as well. And I think that was partially too because of, again, the topic of this song is quite layered, and we as humans are layered. And when it comes to all the things people are balancing, that's quite layered. And so it was really purposely, we went back and forth a bunch of times. Actually, this whole record, to be honest, has been probably it feels, even though it has happened quite quickly because I do keep writing so much, it has been so much more intentional with instruments and melody lines and putting things on and then removing them because maybe it doesn't actually need that, what speaks to these lyrics the most. And with this song, I love how it builds with the musicality. As you say, it's layered, and when you get to that solo section, and it almost feels like a release has come for me with that. And I love how I love that zone, getting into that space to sing along to that, because it felt like exactly, I guess, that release I had as an individual when I said, hey, I've written this song and I need to get back on track with my well-being, kind of thing.
Yeah. Now, you could record quite a lot because your father's studio is close to your home, which is very handy given the amount of travel you've been doing. Because I was thinking about where you've been. I thought just as well she could nick down the road to record, because otherwise, logistically, this could all be quite tricky. You have just been in the Pilbara for the Red Country Festival. How was that?
Oh my goodness, it was amazing. Like, such a great trip to get out to the Pilbara. We played 2 shows, Port Hedland and Newman. I had an incredible band of musicians and friends to experience that with, and the community spirit at both of these shows was phenomenal. And I talk about this with such a smile on my face because I really needed a trip like this, to be honest. It was a big, you have all of this preemptive, you get a gig like that and it takes the months of all the planning and the flights and the logistics, and then to get over there, and the wonderful people at Red Country Festival, they were just so warm and welcoming. And Bradley Hall, to see him get up and play before us, and again, that community engagement, and it was such a wonderful trip and beautiful to get out into that country as well, and be mindful again of where we were, appreciate where we were, and really take it in, because it's stunning countryside and it's completely different to what you see over here. And you go, what a cool thing. Like, I think that's been my biggest thing, is just being really mindful of where we are traveling to, and taking the moments. Obviously, mum guilt does kick in, and you realize that, you know, you're sacrificing time at home to pursue your dream, but hopefully that also inspires your kids to you know, really thrive for their passion and work towards that. And at the same time, being really grateful that we get to experience parts of Australia that people have on their bucket list for a very long time.
Yeah.
We did a 6.5 hour bus trip where I was the mum of the trip and made everyone sandwiches for the crew. I got up really early and made sure I packed sandwiches and foiled them all up and walked onto the bus like with 8 sandwiches high. I was like, just in case anyone gets hungry.
Excuse me, you're the star of the show. You shouldn't be doing that.
Oh no, it's good. It means that everyone's looked after, and I like that.
As long as someone's looking after you.
I did walk off with a couple though. I made obviously too many, but that's okay.
Well, it's your bonus. You get the sandwiches back.
It became a bit of the joke. The sandwiches travelled the Pilbara, and who wanted to eat one?
Well, you have gone from one side to the other, because then after that you went to Great Keppel Island to do the She Songwriting Retreat with Lynn Botel, and then you stayed on for Country on Keppel. I don't know how one would get songwriting done on an island like that, instead of just staring out the window or sitting on the beach. How do you get songwriting done on a tropical island?
It was hard calling home to say that it was, you know, a day at work when you had such beautiful landscapes and tropical beaches behind you. Honestly, that She retreat that Liam Botel has created is one of the most special one of the most special events, weekends, retreats I've ever been a part of. And it was really lovely. I've worked a bunch with Lim Botel, but it was so lovely getting to see her in a space where she's absolutely born for it. Like, it was inspiring. Not only, you know, the women that you get to create with and heal with as well. I'm going to say there's a lot of healing done at these She retreats, and to have such a beautiful nature, you know, at your doorstep, to get out and to sit and meditate on the beach before you go and write. A lot of songs, I think, were inspired by the nature as well. I think that it certainly started off our writing for the morning was using what was in front of us to start, you know, that creative flow. But I honestly would put hands down that She retreat at Great Keppel Island. We also had Kelly Brouhaha a part of the team. And it will hands down go as one of my most adored things I've ever been a part of.
That's amazing. Because, yeah, you're a DAG sheep station person. You've done a lot of co-writing. You've been in many different environments. So
Yeah.
that's saying something. So if Lynn, I think she's running another retreat towards the end of the year, but if she ever goes back to Great Keppel, obviously that's a good spot to go for it.
Yeah, I just think there's so much. It was just obviously, I think, yeah, where we were was a big part of that. Even though I grew up in country, regional, you know, Tamworth, and we didn't like have farming land, but we had enough land that we could have had. We just, you know, we had space around us. I always feel at calm when I'm either in the mountains, and I've always had such a pull to the ocean. So I think for me as a writer, I was in heaven, to be honest, because I was just like, I was getting up early every morning and making sure I was going for a walk and taking in the colors. And it was so wonderful to see the sunsets, because we looked back towards the mainland. So we got to see the sunsets, which were just incredible. But we had some of the most impressive group of women who just sat and we, you know, shared stories, and there was so much respect, and it became a really lovely little bubble that existed there on the island. It kind of felt like we were worlds away from everything, and some of the most beautiful songs came out of that week, and I found that too. I'd go back to my room and I was in writing mode. like, get these down quickly, Ashleigh, get these down. So it was really special. It was, as I said, I was ringing home to each night to talk to the kids in key, and it was a really special, euphoric week to be a part of.
And then you stayed on for Country on Keppel, so that was well organised on Lynn's part that you could just flow from one to the other. But do you have to do a conscious gear change from being in that songwriting space to being a performer?
Absolutely. I do. I had to take that kind of, finish one thing, draw a line in the sand, do a little, come down from that, process that, and then shift into performer set mode. Obviously, when you're at a songwriting retreat, you sit and you talk a lot. You're writing. Your whole purpose is to write songs, obviously, and a lot of that is you do sit and talk to people about things that you wouldn't just generally strike up in a conversation. So then when you go into performer mode, obviously they're not too far apart for me. That's a conscious thing too. I don't like being worlds apart when I'm a performer to what I exist in normality. But I think that was the biggest thing, of actually letting go of maybe more of the emotion and the spiritualness of She, to then kick into being grounded as a performer and ready for your set. And again, it was such a great festival, again, to be in the same wonderful space and to be playing and looking out to the ocean, and having a wonderful crowd, and the seagulls doing their little dance. Although seagulls get very angry around food, I've noticed. There was one day I was talking with my burger in my hand, and we had a few run-ins with some wildlife while we were there. Ask Lynn Botel about the possum. It was, although it liked her shoes a lot. She was better than Kel. But it was a wonderful festival, a great band, again, to have musicians that you just really connect with on and off stage. I think that's so important. And the scenery of it, it was beautiful. I ended up at that point, whenever I rang home, I had to do it from inside our accommodation and make it look really dark, so that the kids weren't so sad. But, Harriet wrote a book while I was away too, and it was One Morning My Mummy Went to an Island.
Well, it's a non-fiction story, so
it was a true story. But it was great. It was great.
So speaking of gear changes, you have to run through many gears at once at the Academy of Country Music. Now, you are now the Assistant Director of the Academy, and at the time we're speaking, you have not long wrapped up the Junior Academy, which takes place in the middle of the year. How many years have you been involved with the Academy?
Oh, good question. I've been involved. I did my first senior group leader mentor, took on a group in 2018. Prior to that, I was a guest speaker and had done guest songwriting or fiddle masterclasses. I graduated myself in 2009.
Right.
So, it's quite a full circle now. Saying assistant director still hasn't quite sunk in, I think. And obviously, again, it's just a huge honor to be, anytime I've ever been involved in whatever capacity with the Academy, I take that as a huge honor to be involved. I think it's so important to have that in our industry and to give back, and also to be a positive, part of someone's career moving forward. I think that's really powerful. So this year we flew back in from Keppel Island. We swapped the shorts and the T-shirt for a beanie and a long jacket as we landed back in Tamworth. And I'm always just so in awe of what talent we have in this country. The junior course, our youngest this year was 10.
Wow.
And our oldest student was 17. So a vast, array of different ages there, but the talent and the songs that came out of this week alone at Academy, it was just next level amazing. And to see so much, again, just it's really lovely to see people authentically wanting to discover and create and establish a music career based around what they've got to say and their story. And it's just so lovely to be a part of it. It was a wonderful class this year, and they made us all very proud at graduation day.
I am very curious as to why you went to the academy. Now, you have been playing music from a very young age. You took charge of the family band before you were even a teenager. You were on tour with Casey Chambers from, I think, 16 or 17. You played multiple instruments. You've been doing music for quite a while. You released your first album. Why did you go to academy?
Well, I was 15 when I first went to academy, or 15 turning 16. And it was on my bucket list. Like, I always wanted to do it. And I was edging to do it since the age of 9, if I'm being honest. My dad was actually a group leader when it was in the previous terms of Camerata or the college. And I remember any excuse, because it was always school holidays, any excuse for mum to go up to the campus and drop dad in fresh muffins, I would be there. And Roger Corbett talks about this little young Ashleigh would come in to give her dad muffins, and I would just then sit there listening, and I'd write notes down on what was being said from the songwriting workshops then. And I know when mum and dad, we sat down and they said they thought I would get the most out of it when I was a little bit older as a teenager. So that's why we aimed for that 15, 16 year gap. And for me, it was the first time that I was involved in something musically that wasn't around our family.
Right.
And I know growing up, I was very fortunate with music. I always had a stage. I always had a place to express myself, because, my grandparents had a property which had a venue on it. My dad had shows, and he was always, if you want to play or you want to sing, you're always welcome. So I always had a stage to get on. But then in that sense, I probably didn't I didn't do as many talent quest circuits, because it wasn't that I wasn't interested. It was just that I had opportunities that were right there within our beautiful family. So for me, going to the academy was the first time that I saw in my own world and being a part of a community outside of my family. And it was terrifying at first too, to be honest. I remember going and we did the parent junior course. So my mum went along for the junior course, and we stayed on campus even though it was in Tamworth, because we wanted to really be a part of it. And I remember saying to mum, I don't think I belong here. I don't know. I'm not good enough to be here. All of those thoughts. And then you find like-minded people. I went through academy with Max Jackson, and Link Phelps, and they become core parts of just how you exist in a community. So then once I did the junior and I came out of that with a pretty strong musical plan of releasing EPs and really establishing that original side of my music. I then did senior a year earlier, being 17. And that's actually how I met Casey, and that's how I actually picked up the tour. So it was for me, though, and that's why I think I'm so chuffed to be a part of the team, is that I know for me it started that community building.
Right.
It's such a dream to be on a working team with Lynn and Roger, who I once was in songwriting workshops with them at Academy. And so I just hope that any young artist out there can see that you can make it absolutely your thing and achieve it. You've just got to keep showing up for it every day.
Yeah. Well, showing up is something you do beautifully, including during the concert for the Junior Academy. So I saw that last year, and so you were you were songwriting, you were doing other things at the academy. Now you're assistant director, you have other jobs, and you also play in this concert. And for anyone who hasn't seen it, basically you were on stage for most of the songs. And I thought, so not only had she been, songwriting and teaching and doing all sorts of things, but somehow you've rehearsed all the songs for this concert and you still got on stage and looked like it was the best time you could have possibly had. You didn't look at all tired. So I thought this is just an extraordinary amount of gears going at once, to go back to that.
Yeah, there's a lot of gears, but I think that's just what creatives are. Like, so much of what you do with music, there is so many hats and gears and shifts, and that's one thing I've always known when you do academy, is that you've got to be kind of the jack of all trades as well. It is very beneficial, but that's with music, to be honest. If you can pull together artwork at a drop of a hat to promote your gigs, that's always helpful. And so with academy mode, you watch everyone's, you watch Linny as well. She's just across everything at all times, and the songs, and knows when the cues are in. And for me, though, it was just joy to be a part of that show and to play. On the night, I played banjo and did some percussive parts, but we had two wonderful interns that did all the violin work this year, Cheyenne Owen and Caitlin Jemison. So they took one part of my gear away, which was but it was so rewarding. I've known both those girls as well for a long time, and to see them elevate as well and lift and grow into a space in the intern role at the academy, it's just really lovely to see that exists in our industry. It's being nurtured, and it is really refreshing energy to be around juniors as well. As I said, the songs that they wrote at academy, I think we were at, again, about a 95% of the show was originals that existed because of that week at academy. And it's just, if you don't feel inspired and rejuvenated around that, I think you need to take a moment to really absorb what is in front of you, because it is wonderful to see. I think we heard people in the audience go, oh, I reckon there's the next star maker in there, and it is true. You see things, and it's not only that, though. You see people that find themselves, performing as the front person is daunting. That they do it, they see that they love it, but they now realize that you can be a songwriter and have your songs performed by other people. So it's really, even though you might be tired and life is busy and you travel and you come in and you go, okay, shift gears and we're here now. It's just really refreshing being around that energy. And if you could harness it and have their energy, it'd be wonderful every day.
Well, but I do think there's a continuum there. I'm quite sure that a lot of the energy you bring to it is being repurposed by them. If we think that energy is not created or destroyed, it just changes form, then what you're bringing to it adds momentum to what they're doing. What Lynn's bringing to it does that as well. So I think it's also the fact that you and Lynn in that setting are very open to all of that creative endeavor by everyone who's there. It's just that sense of you don't ever close yourselves off to learning new things and changing as artists, and that's such a fertile environment to offer to any artists, but especially young people who are wondering what on earth they're doing and whether they're good enough, as you did.
Yeah, it's just really lovely. I love watching people's growth in that time, and I go back to when I was the student, and those intrusive thoughts, and comparison's the thief of all joy, all of those things. And you do watch, I think we have in society, you do naturally compare. It's something, and it's prevalent more and more with social media. You have a bad day, you get on social media and see everyone's good day, and suddenly intrusive thoughts are there. So watching people overcome those barriers as well, and realizing that their actual thing that they've got is good enough, and watching and supporting people just to give it a go. If I think that's, and watching what they believe is not achievable for themselves, and then by the end of the week surprising themselves and lifting the bar even higher of, like, look what I just did. I was so afraid to perform without my guitar because I've never done that, and I just did that. And and you get, it's the endorphin rush of watching people achieve things. It's one of the most beautiful things, is, I think, as any human being, is to watch somebody achieve something and feel great about what they just did. And I think we need more and more of that in life, to be honest.
Yeah.
It doesn't take away from what you've achieved. It's just, it actually brings a perspective that we all have things, and we all have something that is worthy. And watching people's belief grow in that also keeps yours growing as well, I think, because there's always, you say, as artists, you want to keep growing, and we do keep growing. And that means there's always discomfort somewhere because it's something new that you've never done, or you release a song that you go, oh, I hope people, but once you let that go and you realize the growth is outside of those comfort zones, and it's just so lovely to be a part of something that cheers that on and supports it and has your own also supported as well.
And it is hard to go outside of that comfort zone. I'm sure you've seen some artists put their toe over the edge of the precipice and then draw it back because it is too scary to go over there. But yeah, there's a lot of fun also to be had in leaping into the unknown, as much as it is scary.
Yeah, I think, and it's a whole mindset, isn't it, of regaining back that power of how you look at something as well. You can get totally caught up in the fear of the leap and the unknown, or you, on a really strong, powerful, mindful day, you can take that fear and see it as like excitement that you don't actually know what exists yet. And I think depending on what creative headspace you're in depends on what mode you're going to get straight away. So it's understanding for me, all of those processes to bring that in and harness that correctly as well.
Now, I could have you talking about that for a very long time because I think there's hours of discussion in that alone. But I will move on to the Gympie Muster now. You have a little lull, Ashleigh, but then you're off again to Gympie on the 22nd to the 25th of August. Have you lost track of how many Gympies you've played?
Oh, I kind of have. I remember my first muster, like we went up with my dad. My dad played the very first muster, which I wasn't around for, my brother was. And then we did some when we were young kids. I played in Casey's band 2012 was my first time as a musician. And then I've been a part of it in my own way since then as well over many years. But it feels, I'm really excited about this year's Gympie Muster. We're going to have the new record almost out. It's kind of like our pre-launch, pre-order kind of setting up thing. So we've got a new show, new songs in the set as well. And I just love getting out to the muster, the forest canopy, the people. We're taking the family up. We've got a van. We're taking the Toyota, which, Tamworth City Toyota have done so lovely in supporting us, and they've given me a black car, which will not be black by the time that we go to the Gympie Muster. So I feel like when I talk about it, there's just a lot of joy when it comes around the muster. So it's I'm really excited musically though to share the new stuff.
Now, if Harriet's going with you, it's high time she is put to work on stage because she does want to be on stage, but I guess she's old enough now. Make her a backup singer.
She has been telling me, I was running through the set the other day and she asked me where was I going to put her song in. And I said, oh, well, what song? I said, what song would you like? And she goes, oh, no, not one of yours. I would like my own song.
Here is my selection because like mother, like daughter.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, okay, wow. So here I was trying to say, what about you sing Sunshine with me? Well, I could, yes, but I had my own song, So
well, there you go.
It's going to be lovely. And whereas Lily will probably just want to go and collect the leaves and be twirling side stage.
She's the nature girl of the family.
Yeah, she's got a wild defiancy to our Lil. It's on Lily's time. And yeah, you'll know about it if you've done the wrong thing.
Right. What's good, sounds like she knows her boundaries, so that's good.
She does, and she makes sure everybody else does too.
Now, looking even further ahead, you have already announced your Tamworth Country Music Festival show for 2025. You are back at Tamworth Town Hall, and that was a very big, amazing, emotional show earlier this year. So I would imagine it will be even bigger and better next year.
Yeah, it's always such a privilege to get to play in the town hall. So to have our 2025 show there again, straight away, that just makes me want to lift the show and the spirit of the show. So we're planning. It is going to be special. I feel like it will be emotional too, with Tamworth, and we'll have obviously the new record out, and a bunch of our plans for the next year will be kind of announced and launched around January also. So it's called Over to Me, which is, I think it's kind of that chapter of where I'm at. It's, I have been part of a beautiful family, historical legacy, and there's some shifts happening and all of those things musically. And I think having that as Over to Me, it's just kind of saying that I'm taking the reins of this next chapter. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of music ahead. There is a lot of change. There's that fear again of that it's outside the comfort zone, but it feels like it's the right time as well to have a show like this. So the Tamworth Town Hall, it's going to be a pretty magical place come that Wednesday. I'm looking forward to being just really mindful in that space.
Well, having seen you play live there and in other places, I can thoroughly recommend that people who are heading to the festival get along to your show. In the meantime, we have the single Love Still Has Something. People can catch you at the Gympie Muster. I can't wait for your new album. I'm very impatient to hear it, so I look forward to hearing it. Ashleigh Dallas, what a great pleasure, as always, to talk to you. Thank you for your time.
Sentiments are shared, Sophie. Thanks so much.